Welcome, everyone. My name is Alex Rose. I am with the City of Seattle, and I'm part of the team that brought you this event today. So I'm really happy to be here with some new friends, old friends, for Music on Screen. Panel is focused on just that, music on screen, right? We are looking at who's behind the music that is composed and curated for film, TV, video games, and other media. We have got some composers and music licensing professional. We'll get into their bios in just a second. And here we go. I'm navigating multiple windows on one screen. So I'm going to, boom, advance this slide and introduce Sarah. Sarah Hunt brings a uniquely successful 20-plus year career in the music industry, and she's currently Vice President of Music and Operations at Audiosocket. Audiosocket is a music licensing company that represents emerging artists worldwide for placement in film, TV, and new media. And their artists have landed placements with Netflix, Amazon, HBO, Vice, NBC, MTV, Audi, Adidas, Disney, and many more. Andrew Joslyn. Andrew is a composer, orchestrator, and violinist, and he's an award-winning musical polymath. He currently runs his own production studio in Seattle, has co-written chart-topping songs, has scored several feature-length films, and writes music for artists, labels, podcasts, music licensing houses, and commercials. And we also have Maria Jose Felix, who is a composer born and raised in Puebla, Mexico. She holds a master's degree in film composition from the Pacific Northwest Film Scoring Program. She moved to Seattle in 2015, and since then, her music has appeared in television, short films, video games, apps, and other media. Maria Jose hopes to keep inspiring people with her music and sharing it with the world. So welcome to our panelists. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. We'll get back to that later. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so glad to share this time and space with you. And before I turn it over to you, I just want to mention that we have the Q&A here in the Hopin platform. We have a Q&A area where you can enter your questions for the panelists. And just a reminder, don't forget to click the Ask button to submit your question. And then if you're interested in attending a private breakout session after this panel, you can put that in the Q&A tab as well. And our volunteer session manager will help get you all set up for the first folks who express their interest in doing that. Be sure to check your private messages, which are located in the top right corner next to the paper airplane icon. And, we've got to keep these breakout sessions intimate and valuable. So we may not be able to invite everybody who's interested in a breakout session. So the sooner you get your request in, the better off your chances are of getting connected with the panelists after we're through with the formal program. So now I'm going to turn it over to you all, and I'd love for you each to give us a sense of how you got to where you are, what you're doing, what your role is, and just a little more of your background. So I'll go in the same order that those slides were in. So Sarah, I'll start with you.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm Sarah. I started as an intern at a radio station, Star 101.5, doing promotions work. I said yes to every opportunity that they offered me and was hired on. From there, I moved into a local office of Universal, Island Def Jam in marketing. Then worked for some local labels doing label management, artist management. Went on to digital distribution, where I met the co-founder of Audiosocket, which is where I am now, and manage the day-to-day business with sales, marketing, and artists.
Awesome. many stops along the way, it sounds like. Andrew. I can't hear you, bud. Oh. Yeah. No audio this time.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Is it somewhat reasonably you can hear me?
Somewhat reasonably, we can hear you.
All right, I'll just go with this. Sorry, I'm having sound issues as a sound engineer. I don't know what the hell's happening. I'm Andrew Joslyn, composer, arranger, producer. I've been working in the music industry for maybe close to 15 plus years at this point. I'm also a curator and orchestrator for Seattle Symphony's Essential series, which partners up local musicians with the symphony for special showcases. So, with respect to film scoring and commercial stuff, I've been working with a variety of clients over the years, and Sarah and Audiosocket is one of them. I've done work with Marmoset and Singing Serpent, Barking Owl, a lot of weird animal named licensing houses, but I also do film scoring. So got my start a couple years back with some agencies down in Burbank, doing some short films and some features.
You got that connection down to the LA area, sounds like, to break into film, doing music for film. Thanks, Andrew. Maria Jose.
Hi. So I guess I started focusing on film, and then later on I went on to video games as well. So I started doing game jams and like all the 48-hour film festivals and all of that stuff, just to get to know some people and get some experience and do some have more performer portfolio. And from there I started just getting more clients, both here in Seattle as well as LA. And I also work with teams in Mexico because I'm from there. So sometimes when I go, I try to network over there and connect with people and show them what I'm doing. So I have been working on video games, doing original music, doing original music for films with connections in LA, and here doing for apps and just other media experiences with some other personal clients.
Cool, thank you. So I want to talk about, what is the process for getting music married together with media? And Maho, you put together some slides that I can pull up, and we can talk through the process, because from what I understand, it looks different depending on the type of media. So let me pull that up. All right. So film, TV, games, libraries, there are different applications for music on screen. So let's talk first about the process for getting music into films.
Yes, and I bet Andrew would be able to help me with this, since this is very broad.
Yeah.
But the process for film music, and I specialize in that, and video game music, it's very different, because in film music you have a set time that you need the music to be in, and you need to hit the action, and you need to hit certain hit points. So when you start creating the concept and the idea for that music, that is something that you need to take into consideration. You need to take into consideration where you want to hit the action and how long you need to make this cue so that is possible. From there, you create the music, which is mostly the same as in video games. And you have a cue list, which tells you how many cues you have. to work on for the film and their length. And then, you record. If you're going to record, you mix and master, and then you deliver it, and the editor does all of that job. And like I said, this is very, very broad. But I don't know if Andrew wants to add anything, or if you want me to talk about the difference between that and video games now.
Well,
Yeah, let's hear from Andrew.
Yeah. Is my volume better? I've been tweaking in the background. All right. It's fine. We'll just go.
Your volume is what it is.
It is what it is. So I'm working out your ear muscles. Yeah. So Maria, just what you were saying, like with film, even film just by itself, there's a lot of different styles and deliverables for every type. So for example, like a documentary film versus a feature film versus a short, and then the style, the budgeting, and just kind of practical considerations of scoring are going to be pretty different from each of those. And even like when you look at like TV, sometimes there's a lot of what are called zingers, which is just like, it's not even really a cue. It's a short transitional piece. It's like 2 seconds long. It's like, and then you're into the next scene. So being aware of the specific medium that you're working in is really important when you're getting into scoring to picture, just because, I mean, the budgets, the deliverables, and just the process of how you write is going to be very different from each.
So flexibility in terms of your expectations for a project, and approaching each different project as a unique opportunity.
Yeah, I would also say too, being really, really clear with, who the point of contact is, who's hiring you. Is it the picture editor? Is it the director? Is it, because in those moments you need to, vast majority of the time when you're hired as a composer, you are hired as the music department, not just the composer. So you're kind of expected to deliver everything. Fully mixed, mastered, fully developed, score. If you need to, record live instruments, for the most part, for a lot of independent films and for smaller projects, it's gonna all be on you. So being able to understand that and communicate that and be able to work directly with the director in setting expectations is really important from the beginning. So, yeah.
Yeah, so just to underscore that, if you're a composer who's working in film and other media, you often wear multiple hats, not just on the composition side, but mixing, mastering, as you see here, recording, directing, hiring, lots of different ing words, lots of different roles. Yeah, so let's see, how is that different from video game, or how is video game composition different than film?
So the thing that's interesting is that video games don't really have a set time where action is happening, because you have the player, right? And the player can go and do a side quest, or they can wander around, and you have to have the music adapt to the player. So video games use loops, which is just music that loops around and keeps going, as opposed to film, which just starts and ends at a certain point. But the other thing is that, like Andrew was mentioning, also in games, most of the time, the person hired to do the audio is expected to not only compose, but also record, mix, master, and in this case, even implement the music. So that is something that it's also a little bit different, because video games also use adaptive music, which means that they are adapting to what the player is doing. So whenever there's like a higher action going on in the video game, a new layer is going to come up that makes the music be more active and more intense. And you need to plan for that in that first concept idea creation. And then when we go to the composition, in film we have the cue list, and in video games we have the asset list, which is it's very similar, but just the asset list doesn't have like a time where it's going to start and it's going to end. It might have a duration, but it won't have a time for starting and ending. Then the recording, mixing, and mastering, it's mostly the same. And like Andrew mentioned, most of the time you have to do everything yourself. You need to record, or you need to play, or you need to hire, you need to mix and master, like we do in film. And then we go to the implementation side, and most of the time that's taken care of with middleware. So that is Wise or FMOD or other programs that exist, or through coding. So if that is something that is interesting to you, coding is definitely something that is going to be very, very useful.
So implementation is actually coding the music into the game. Is that right?
Yes. So the middleware is helping you to be like a bridge between the code and the actual like music. So it doesn't involve a lot of coding. So that's why it's called like middleware. But sometimes people don't use middleware, and they go straight to coding.
Interesting. That's so cool. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over. This question is for you, Sarah. You know, we talked about composing original music for a given piece of media. What about music that's already been recorded? Can you tell us about how that gets placed? What's the process there?
Sure. So for us, there's an onboarding process. We scout outbound, or we receive music to us. They sign a licensing agreement. We ingest their music. It's tagged with different metadata. Our creative team playlists it. So depending on genre, mood, themes, etc. We feature our artists in marketing. The client finds a song that they like. They request a quote from us, and the quotes depend on the types of media rights needed. And then we draft a license for them. So that's short and sweet, but there's a lot that goes into that. But that's the process.
So how would a band or an artist like submit their music or
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have a little artist portal on our site. It's artist.audiosocket.com, and you can submit your music. And we receive a lot of emails as well, but we like to guide them to the portal to submit.
Artist.audiosocket.com.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can get that in the chat.
You can drop it in too.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, this is, I think, for all of you. But Majo, let's start with you. Being based in Seattle, what are things that that you've done or that you would advise somebody who's looking to do what you do? Like what should they get involved with here in Seattle? What opportunities are there to build their portfolios?
Yeah, so I would start getting involved in local events, and depending on what they are interested in, I'm sure they'll be able to find something. But for example, for games, there are a lot of game jams, and there is the Seattle Game Audio Group, which organizes, I think, monthly meetups. And right now they are virtual, of course, but they used to be presential in like a coffee shop. So you go and you talk to people that are doing what you want to do, and you learn from them, and that is very useful. There are also, the 48-hour film festivals that you can go and meet people and do meetups. And just meeting people that are interested in the same things that you do is going to help you a lot, because it's going to show you like where to go, and that might lead to, some opportunities for you.
So meetups and game jams specifically for video games. Thanks for that link, Sarah.
Yeah.
What else, Andrew? Any things that folks should look into locally?
Yeah, well, I'm such a proponent for get to know the scene, get to know your local musicians and your colleagues, because you don't really ever quite know who's going to all of a sudden land a gig doing scoring, and they might need, they might need a session player to come in, or they might need an orchestrator to help them out. So making sure, I know my audio is very quiet. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. But I mean, that's how I actually broke into film scoring. I had recorded my own record of music back in like 2017. And initially it was just a proof of concept that I could show that I could do scoring work, and that I knew how to do arrangement, and that I could write my own songs. But I had a couple of friends of mine that were, I used to share a recording studio with Jason Koenig, who did like music videos for Macklemore. So Jason and I would kind of sit around and talk about scoring and everything else. And a friend of mine that was a picture editor had landed a gig doing a film down in Los Angeles, and he didn't have anyone that he didn't know who to hire as final composer, and he's like, hey man, do you want to kind of jump in on this? And thankfully I had my my album that I could show as kind of a proof of concept, and thankfully it was enough of a portfolio piece that the director of the film agreed to hire me on. So and I would definitely say I had done short films and other stuff prior, but jumping into a feature film without any sort of prep was a lot of kind of trial by fire. So it was like super intense to all of a sudden, be working on 15-minute shorts to literally I have to write an hour and 10 minutes worth of music, and figure out how to do spotting sessions, how to create a cue sheet, how to make sure my cue sheet's registered, and then somehow hire musicians and all this other stuff under $6,000, which is really
Wow.
hard, and if you don't know what you're doing, you will blow through that budget so fast and really literally be working on pennies on the dollar. So
So make sure you get networked, is what I heard. Make sure get to know the local scene.
Yeah, well, be able to put together your own team. In the end, like I can get a good demo mix together that I'm proud to showcase to a producer, the director, or a picture editor. But final mix, I always will hire out. I will have my team of people that I'll go to that help me kind of lay it in, because there's so much tech and there's so much additional stuff that you're just not aware of, and there's so many layers of expertise required to do the job that if you have your own team, it's just better to kind of continually lift everybody up and help their careers, instead of trying to take it all on your own. There's just too much to do when you do a film score.
Too much for one person, so you got to build your team. That's the lesson. So what other things do folks need to know about getting started? Are there any particular hard costs or skills that folks should start building? I guess that's on both sides, right? On the composition side, as well as on the music supervision or curation side. Any particular skills or equipment or software?
I use Sibelius a lot.
Sibelius.
I'm more of a traditional orchestrator and arranger. I grew up doing the pencil and paper kind of stuff, but I've found that it's to each their own. I've found some people that love to just write in MIDI, in like Logic or Pro Tools. It's really nice to have a DAW, a digital audio workstation that can work directly with picture. My personal favorite is Pro Tools and
Pro Tools.
Yeah, and Logic.
I heard, okay, Pro Tools, Logic, Sibelius. Those are some solid foundational programs. Sarah, I see you came off mute.
This sounds silly, but I mean, anything that we try and teach new creatives that come on with us is watch commercials, watch TV shows, watch trailers, study them. Like, why did they pick that song? Was it the vocals? Is it the emotion? Does it have a huge drop? Take your Spotify account, build playlists, email someone that you're jealous of their job and ask them if they have 15 minutes to talk. I bet you'd be surprised at who responds. But little nuggets like that have gotten me a long way along the years.
Super helpful. So in terms of the Spotify playlists, is that sort of a parallel to like a building a portfolio of what your selection skills look like? Or
yeah, I mean, if I had an intern tomorrow hit me up and say, I know what current trends are in the ad world right now, I'd say send me a playlist. And if you can show that you know what you're talking about, then that's a good first step.
awesome. Maho, what do you think? Any others to add?
The only extra thing that I could add is maybe learn to use sound libraries, virtual instruments. So if you are working with MIDI and you're working with DAWs, learning how to create realistic, quote unquote, because it's never going to sound as realistic as a real orchestra, but as realistic as you can, it's going to go a long way. Because you can create your own music and make it sound nice without spending a lot of money on it. So that'll be my advice.
Berkeley Music right now, I just got an email the other day. They offer some free music classes online, and Creative Lab's another local company that has amazing video tutorials.
Creative Live and Berkeley's free music classes. Those are awesome resources.
Yeah.
And our local library, both Seattle Public Library and King County Library Systems, have a lot of online tutorials, particularly for, if you're trying to learn software, that's a good resource as well.
It's good old YouTube too.
And YouTube, yeah. Somebody in another panel was like, Google is your best friend, and I couldn't agree more.
That's true. That's true.
One thing else that I kind of thought of is like skills or ways of maybe thinking about the work that might help. Specifically for like if you're a band and trying to pitch for commercial or try to pitch for film, you have to rethink your song as not this like here's your song. You need to think of it as a toolkit. It has to have starts and stops. Having stems of every single layer of your song is really important. So if you have a really cool drum line, think of it as multiple layers that maybe you can bring down to have a simpler arrangement, or you can build up to make it more. As Maho was saying with video games, you need to have those adaptive layers. So the music has to be a toolkit that someone can recreate your music in a way that works perfectly to their trailer, their film, their whatever scene they're trying to put stuff into. So I think
let me just make sure for anyone having difficulty with the audio. So the advice is for a band or an artist who's got a song that they want to pitch, to think about that song as sort of a fabric, right? It's woven together of different parts. And so Andrew's talking about, being able to use your stems, use different tracks so that you can isolate and sort of pare down or adjust your song to fit, to be able to sort of rework it that way. Thanks, Andrew. All right, we're getting into the Q&A time now. So let's see. We've got. Oh, I think Sarah dropped off. And let me, before I jump into that, I think maybe one question before we jump in over to the Q&A is just what do you wish you knew when you were younger, or what advice would you have for someone wanting to do what you do?
So I can think of two things. The first thing is that I wish I knew that not every advice applied to me, because you keep hearing things, you just keep hearing advice, or you keep hearing phrases, and you think that everything's going to apply to you. And everybody's different, and everybody's going to need different advice and different things that are going to work for you that then work for somebody else. So learning to pick out what works for you is very important. And the second thing that I wish I knew is that everything that you do, it's going to be useful. So for me, I started out, I wanted to be a singer growing up. And I studied singing until I was probably 19. And that's when I decided to change into composition. And, and then I studied like film composition, and now I'm doing a little bit more games. But everything that I studied before, I studied opera when I was singing. So I believe that all of this was very useful, and it's taking me here to where I am. So everything that you do, it's useful, and it's okay if you change routes every once in a while and you decide that this is not working for you and you want to go like a slightly different direction. That's okay. You don't have to stay with something, and everything that you learn is useful.
Love it. Great advice. Andrew, you want to add to that?
From my mouse hole.
Yes, under the pillows that you're buried under.
Under my muffledness. I don't know what's going on. When I first started, I really wish I knew the business better. Just the finances, the back end, licensing. When I did my first film score, I did not understand the process of doing a spotting session, putting together the cues, keeping yourself organized, and keeping a budget in place. I blew my budget for the film on the first 3 cues because I got super excited, but I had 46 cues of music that I needed to fulfill. So getting into this, and especially when you're offered that first job, you really need to understand the business. And you don't have to be like some crazy business entrepreneur, like know everything. It's just be aware of the expectations of you as being the music department. Understand how to budget accordingly. If you're given $5,000 for a film, that's not a lot, but you can make it work. But like Maho was saying, you should probably learn how to do synthestration, where it's like you take VSTs and make them sound as real as possible, because you're not going to have the budget to go to a studio, pay for musicians, pay for an engineer, and get the stems, have them mixed, and then put in the film. So I actually also wish I really knew sound design. Sound design is becoming the biggest thing right now in scoring for film, TV, podcasts, and just having that little extra zing to your compositions or your work just makes you that much more hireable. And what I mean by sound design, it's how to put in the risers, how to tweak the sound of stuff so it's a little bit more ambient, or know how to do those little production ear candy bits. It's so I consider myself a traditional composer, and I can write string quartets till forever, but a traditional string quartet sound just won't cut it. Maybe for certain cues, for sure, but if you can figure out ways to make it sound a little bit more interesting or a little bit more edgy and trendy, that's something that's really important. And like Sarah was saying, you should be aware of what the trends are. Unfortunately, if you're trying to create Zydeco heavy metal music and expect someone to place that in a film, I'm sorry, you just might be in for a world of hurt. But there's no shame in. I think someone in Q&A had talked about how do you deal with anxiety and self-doubt. You're going to be dealing with it all the time, but that's okay. I think one thing that's important when you're doing scoring work, you're offering a service. It's not just you that are creating the end product. If you're a musician, you can create an album and that's your album. But if you're working with a team to create film or a TV show, you have to learn how to have some level of working and give and take on the creative process. So maybe your idea of the perfect cue might not fit with the director, but learn to be flexible enough so you don't have to deal with that anxiety and self-doubt. Look at it as more of the craft as opposed to someone judging you based on your individual worth as a musician, because that's not the case. You have a service to offer. Make sure that you are up to par with what services you can offer. Hopefully you can hear me and from my mouse hole.
Thanks, Andrew.
I'll fix my audio next time.
We'll definitely hear from you again, I'm sure.
Okay. It's probably a bad cable. Sorry.
Sarah, we're just kind of talking about any advice for people looking to follow in your footsteps, or anything you wish that you knew when you were younger or starting out.
Oh gosh. Be nimble, be curious, don't ever stop learning. If you end up in an internship, no job is too small. One thing, so we've been hiring some people lately, and I've been reviewing a lot of cover letters and resumes. And I want to tell you, when you're reaching out for a job or an internship, don't tell me why it's great for you. Tell me why you're great for us. And I've noticed that a lot of that is missing from the resumes that we're getting right now. If you know current trends, send a playlist. I said that earlier. If you're an Excel VLOOKUP queen, find the company's pain points and show them how you can help them. That's the biggest advice I have.
Yes. Not how it's going to benefit you, but how you will benefit them.
Yes.
That's
and a
awesome.
lot of the music business is Excel.
So go to the library website, take some free Excel tutorials, and then go talk to Sarah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we've got some questions in the Q&A section. How do music producers get placements in video games? I think it's maybe this is like for not being commissioned to compose, but actually getting already recorded music in video games. And if this is your question, maybe let me know if I've interpreted it okay. Maria Jose, do you think we got anything for this one?
Yeah, it's a bit hard for me also to understand the question, but I think that I can say that you need to get into the game as early as possible. So if you have already seen a trailer of the game, on Twitter or on Facebook, it's probably too late. So you need to get there before that. So like I said, that means, getting to know people that are interested in doing that, talking about what you can offer, and starting almost from the beginning.
And I see they followed up and said, yes, like beats. So they've got some beats and they want to pitch it to a video game.
Oh, okay. So in that case, I would say, yes, just have it available. So get your music out there so that it can reach the right people. Find out where they look for stuff. If they are, around Twitter, Facebook, I don't know if they look in LinkedIn. Just try to make your music available so that the people that you want to reach are looking there. That'll be my advice.
I'd also add on to that, if you have a specific game in mind, like maybe not one that just came out, but you write tracks that are perfect for Call of Duty, reach out to companies, either mine or similar to mine, and tell them exactly where you think your music fits. And that's not even limited to video games. That could be TV shows, that could be anything. I had an artist say, I wrote the song, it's perfect for This Is Us. And it was perfect for that. And we have the music supervisor contact. So do a little bit of the lead work for them, and that could increase your chances.
Cool. So study up, know where you fit or where your music might fit, and go that route. Great. I think similarly, there's another question that's kind of underscoring that one we just talked about, that any beats that might be, good for reality TV shows or things like that. I imagine that's a similar steps to take.
Reality TV shows don't pay anything. So aspirationally, you're not going to make much money there. They use big blanket deals that are very inexpensive because they use a ton of music. So, the larger network shows are probably where you're going to see money the most.
Right on. This is insider knowledge. This is exactly what it's about. Another question, how do we make a soundtrack album for a film? If they've got the gear, is there a certain app to use? I think maybe this is going back to some of those programs you were talking about, Andrew.
A specific app. Well, if you have all the technology and everything else, I guess I'm a little confused by the question. Like, if you're creating a soundtrack album, is that is it specific to a project that you're pitching for, or is it kind of like a proof of concept? Like, hey, here's a portfolio. Here are a couple of tracks that I've made that sound like they could be in a soundtrack. I guess I'm a little more. I guess I need a little bit more clarification on what that question was.
Yeah. Whoever put this question, if you want to say more, just do that in the chat. We've got a couple minutes left, and I just want to remind folks, if you want to have a small chat following this panel with any of the panelists, let us know that in the Q&A tab. And I'm not seeing any activity there, so maybe you already covered it. Wonderful. Well, this has been so revealing. I've learned so much myself, and I'm sure that our attendees have too. I'm going to put up one last slide in case folks want to follow up with any of you. We've got some ways for folks to do that. And I don't know if there's any other handles or anything you want to drop in the chat, but feel free to do that. Thank you so much, Maria Jose, Andrew, and Sarah. This has been wonderful. We've got some thank yous coming in the chat as well. And yes, really enjoyed this. So thank you so much, everybody. Continue having a wonderful City of Music Career Day.